Brushes make it so easy to create so many different things, even trees. Let's get real close to the center part of the painting right here, where we're going to zoom in and look at the trees way down on 59th Street in Central Park, way back there. Once it gets brought down to this low resolution here, they kind of lose some of their detail, but you can see that there is some detail to be seen in there, and the printer will pick up most of that to make it look like the little trees that are way back there down the street. Now, creating those trees was just a question of playing around with brushes. Got a file here where I'm going to create some trees. Now I'm going to do it in a layer because I create everything in layers, and I'm going to basically do the trees like the ones in Central Park. Now keep in mind that in the daytime the colors might be a little different and so on, but here's the ones in Central Park. So I'm going to take a hard edge brush, nice hard edge brush like this one, make it a little bigger, and I'm just going to draw a couple of strokes like this. These are basically your trunks. I got some thinner ones going on here, and you're not seeing me change the size of my brush, and that's because I have a pressure-sensitive tablet I'm using, which is why I get the different thicknesses. So there. They don't have to be that perfect because of the fact that I am going to cover most of this stuff with leaves. So just throw a couple of more little branches in there like that. So there's the basic trunk of our tree. Now, if you were going to do this as a real tree, I would say make it brown instead of black and give it a little filter like Craquelure, which will give it a nice little texture, or whatever you might want to play with. But right now we're going to just do those trees like the ones in Central Park. So now I'm going to create the leaves. To create the leaves, I'm going to basically create a single leaf. So I'm going to go in here, and on the side I'm just going to draw a little shape like so. I'm going to fill it in with black. Kind of a heart shape right there like that. That's a leaf. You might want to consult a botanical book and create something that looks more realistic. Doesn't matter. These leaves are so tiny and so far away, you don't have to get that perfect with it. But there's my leaf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that and define it as a brush. So we'll call it leaf. Now we can throw it away. Don't need to see it anymore. I'm going to create another layer where I'm going to start adding my leaves, and I'm going to call it dark leaves. Now these trees are silhouettes in the night sky way back there, so that's why I used black for the trunk, and I'm going to use black for the leaves themselves. So I'm going to take my paintbrush tool and I'm going to select that brush right there. It appears as the last brush, which right now it does that. So let's undo that and look at our brush engine right here, where I'm going to increase the spacing of that brush. So now they're individual tips. You see, there you go. Now they start to look more like that. I'm going to bring down their size considerably because I want them to be little tiny leaves on the tree like that. There you go. Maybe even a little bit smaller. Just bring it to about 9. That's a good size right there. So now they're all going in the same direction. We can make them dance like little rockets here and have them all dancing here. But I want to affect every tip individually. So I'm going to go into my shape dynamics right here, where I'm going to have pen pressure turned off because I don't want the pressure to be controlling it. And if you have a mouse, you don't have pen pressure. But I am going to do a size jitter. That means that each tip is going to be a different size than its neighbor, as you can see there. I'm going to set up a minimum diameter so they don't get too small. Let's set it to about 14%. So that way they don't become little tiny dots. And right off the bat, we can see that we're starting to have a little variety in our stroke. I'm now going to play around with the angle as well. Push that all the way over to 100% so that every leaf is going in a different direction. And then finally, scattering. I'm going to scatter them on both axes so that they kind of spread away from the actual stroke. So now I'm ready to start applying my leaves. So I come over here and I start applying little leaves all through this area, just covering up stuff, making sure some of the trunks are visible. So I get this nice little tree starting to happen like this. So I start to really fill up the areas. So I start getting these nice little bushes of leaves right through there, all through there. Now, in Times Square, there are street lights which are lighting our tree here. So I need to have those little highlights, and I'm just continuing to fill it up there. I need those little highlights that reflect that light that's coming through. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pick a couple of colors that I want. So there's street lights that are kind of a warm glow. So I'm going to pick a deep orange like this one right here for my foreground color, maybe a little lighter like that. Then for my background color, I'm going to pick that same color, but darken it a bit. Let's go down to about like that. All right, so now that I have those two colors, I'm going to choose one more choice in my brushes panel, and that is the color dynamics, where I'm going to have it go from foreground to background 100%. I'm going to keep the others down to 0 so I don't introduce any other tones in there. I just want to deal with those two particular colors right there. So now I'll create another layer, which I'll call my highlights. These are little tones that are being picked up by the street lights, and I'll just go in there and start drawing in a couple of little spots. I'll just throw in a couple of little areas like that where you can see that the leaves are just starting to lighten up a little bit. Just picking up the highlights onto my tree, just like that. Come a little closer so you can see the effects, and there you can see what's happening. Now, very simple. If I was to pick a bright green here and this dark green, say like that, and we'll just throw some leaves here, you can see that we have a tree in the daytime. It's that simple. But that's the basic technique to create all the leaves on the trees. I did this once a long time ago, and that particular brush made it into the program. It's this brush right here, my Maple Leaf brush, right there. If you study how this brush is set up, it's the same functionality. There's the scattering, there's the shape dynamics, color dynamics, and I also have a transform mode in this one. So there you can see all the different effects that have been applied, and there's that particular leaf. And if we go in there and play with the color dynamics and push this all the way up, there you can see that we get all these nice little tones happening. But that's basically it. I just created a basic shape of the brush, modified it so that it did what I wanted, and there it created the trees that we then see way in the back in Central Park.